12th December 1963 filled Kenyans with jubilation coupled with hope for great things ahead. It was on this day that Kenya gained her independence from the British rule after 43 years of colonization.
Huu ni ushindi wa kila Mwafrika, akiwa KANU akiwa KADU. Ni ushindi wa kumwezesha Mwafrika kuendesha serikali yake bila pingamizi, bila kupingwa.
Kenyans had faced rough times under the colonial power, and scores of thousands tried to rebel against the rule. This led to a vicious cycle of violence between the British and the indigenous population. For instance, in 1952, members of the Mau Mau Society, led by Dedan Kimathi, carried out an armed rebellion against the British government. Following the uprising, a state of emergency was declared on 20th October 1952, and a day later, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta was arrested.
Nairobi police have been supplemented by hundreds of civilians, many of them women, to help round up the Mau Mau bandits. Radio-controlled cars with armored vehicles are used to carry out the army's plans for bringing in all suspects.
Kenyatta's detention escalated the demonstrations, and the situation worsened when he was sentenced to 7 years of hard labor for his involvement in the Mau Mau rebellion. Almost a decade later, on the 21st of August 1961, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta was released from detention, and in May 1963, he led Kenya Africa Union, also known as KANU, to victory in pre-independence elections. It was not until later in the same year that Kenya celebrated its independence, and Mzee Jomo Kenyatta formally became the Prime Minister. The following year, 1964, a new constitution established Kenya as a republic. Immediately after independence, Kenya transformed itself from a British Empire colony to an independent republic. Notably, the country abolished racial segregation and created a national culture and identity. Further, Kenya initiated the establishment of rural roads, water supply systems, healthcare services, educational facilities, together with an enabling and conducive environment for businesses to spur. These led to a tremendous growth in the economy and a substantial improvement of the citizens' living conditions. Ever since then, Kenya has built a reputable healthcare system boasting of countless private and public level 6 hospitals of world-class medical care and repute. This is augmented by a newly introduced top-notch education system that strengthens parental engagement and involvement of other stakeholders in the community. Besides, Kenya's economy has thrived, offering diversified job markets alongside a strong tertiary educational and workforce training system. Consequently, the industrial sector has expanded from processing of raw materials to spearhead Africa's information technology, with the likes of Kansas City coming up. On the other hand, the transport sector has advanced to operationalize the standard gauge railway and an expressway adjacent to Nairobi's Mombasa Road. These, alongside other infrastructural developments, have set Kenya at the pinnacle of Africa's fastest growing economies. In 2010, the transformative Kenya Constitution 2010 decentralized government, bringing forth 47 county governments, aimed to deliver development closer to the local populace. Kenya's athletics prowess has been a source of national pride and global admiration for decades. And to this, Kenyan athletes made a remarkable impression at the World Championships held in Budapest in August 2023, securing a total of 10 medals and clinching the 5th position on the final medal tally. The Kenya Defence Forces has equally participated and contributed in the national athletics excellence. Senior Sergeant Helen Obiri displayed a stunning performance during the 127th edition of the Boston Marathon, where she won, clocking an impressive time of 2 hours, 21 minutes and 38 seconds. Obiri also won the 52nd edition of the New York City Marathon in the Women's Open division. Away from athletics, Kenya is rated among the best tourism destinations, boasting of great sceneries. The country is home to all the big five animals, with vibrant national parks and reserves such as the Masai Mara National Reserve and Amboseli National Park, which are popular safari destinations, with Amboseli offering unbeatable views of Tanzania's Mount Kilimanjaro. The Kenyan coast is a perfect destination for travelers seeking to spend a holiday on a beach, take a swim in the bliss of the ocean, or do sunbathing on the crystal white sands of the beaches. Despite having beautiful sceneries, Kenya has not been spared from global effects of climate change.
The people of Kenya, Africa, and many parts of the world live in the reality of the new normal. The climate crisis is getting worse every year, with millions losing their lives and livelihoods to drought, flash floods, heat waves, cyclones, and wildfires. Luckily, the solutions to make a difference are in our hands.
Climate change, peace, and security interact in complex ways. Climate change can worsen risks to peace and security. Kenya has a keen interest in maintaining and increasing forest covers to preserve water catchment areas and mitigate the effects of climate change. These effects have manifested in the form of floods, water scarcity, and droughts that have been linked to increased conflicts in various regions. When communities are unable to cope with the effect of climate change, these impacts can worsen risks of insecurity or even conflict. To help curb the effects of climate change, Kenya has adopted climate-smart activities and environmental conservation practices. Kenya banned use of plastic carriers in 2017, prompted by environmental and health costs. The country used to generate over 1 million plastic bags that could only be used once and were disposed carelessly and ended up polluting the environment. The government, led by His Excellency President William Ruto, has also initiated planting of 15 billion trees by 2032. This aims at reducing greenhouse emissions, stopping and reversing deforestation, and restoring 5.1 million hectares of deforested and degraded landscapes through the African Landscapes Restoration Initiative, which was launched on 22nd December 2022. In contribution to this, the President declared 13th November 2023 a public holiday and directed the day be dedicated to planting of trees. Millions of Kenyans responded to the President's directive, and a good number of tree seedlings were planted across the country on this day. The Kenya Defence Forces actively participated in this memorable event by donating tree seedlings from its tree nurseries and engaging in the planting exercise. The government has identified KDF as one of the entities to raise tree seedlings with an allocated target of 80 million seedlings yearly. So far, the Kenya Defence Forces has planted millions of trees through its Environmental Soldier Program and has adopted various forests across the country, including Ngong, Aberdares, and Dondori forests. In order to achieve growth, peace remains the cornerstone that every country must reckon with. Kenya has not only pursued peace within its territorial boundaries, but has also been on the forefront of championing for global peace and security. Kenya's contribution to peacekeeping operations dates back to 1979 and has actively participated in these missions through deployment of troop contingents under the United Nations and other regional organizations. Since then, Kenya has actively participated in peacekeeping missions through deployment of troop contingents under the United Nations, including the United Nations Assistance Mission in Somalia, the African Union Mission in Somalia, the United Nations Mission in South Sudan, United Nations Mission in Liberia, United Nations Mission in Darfur, among others. Kenya is also a troop contributing country in the East African Community Regional Force. It is on the premise of peace and stability that 14th October 2011 will always be remembered as a Rubicon crossing moment for the Kenya Defense Forces. On this day, Kenya made history when its troops crossed the border to Somalia in pursuit of Al-Shabaab terrorists. It was in this context that the Kenya Defense Forces crossed the border into Somalia to launch a military offensive against insurgents group Al-Shabaab. The operation was dubbed Operation Linda Inchi.
Our security forces have begun operations within and outside our borders against militants who have sought to destabilize our country.
The rehearting of Kenyan troops in AMISOM on the 22nd of February 2012 via the United Nations Security Council Resolution 2036 enabled the Kenyan military to provide capacity building, leadership and mentorship while training the new Somali security forces. The coordinated link-up of ground, air and amphibious troops and the rapid seizure of the enemy strongpoints in Kismayu and its environs affirmed the meticulous planning that preceded the operation. The assault was all summarized in the Ugali strategy, meaning weakening the Al-Shabaab pockets in various towns and eventually capturing their strongholds. Indeed, the jubilation witnessed upon the announcement of the capture of Kismayu was inspiring and a relief to the residents of the seaport city, which immediately acquired a new lease of life, at least judging from the economic transformation that ensued.
Wageni kila mahali, sio mahali moja, kila mahali. Wageni wanakuja kama Kenya, kama Somalia, bandi nyingine, kila mahali, kama Europe. Wageni mingi yuko hapa.
I had the opportunity of meeting with Johnny Castle, the Assistant Under Secretary of State for African Affairs. He was asking me, General, do you think your armed forces will be able to liberate Kismayu? I told him, we will do that.
More than a decade into the invasion, there are some indelible marks from the intervention process. The pursuit of peace comes at a price: loss of lives, maimed soldiers, and destruction of military equipment. This and the future generations will remain indebted to the courage, valor, and patriotism of these gallant heroes, the brave sons and daughters of Kenya. In spite of the pain, Al-Shabaab activities have significantly reduced, and while the terrorist group remains a threat, its ability to operate has been significantly reduced. Degrading Al-Shabaab has enabled the Kenyan troops, in conjunction with others, to restore peace and establish a legal and normative order in Somalia that is conducive for the protection of human rights. The troops' operations have curtailed cross-border incursions, piracy, robbery at sea, smuggling of contraband goods, and the trafficking of humans and drugs along the shores and through the Kenya-Somalia border. Business and tourism have also thrived, and economic fortunes have improved in the coastal region of Kenya and beyond. More than a decade later, following the end of the AMISOM mandate, on the 31st of March 2022, the African Transition Mission in Somalia, also known as ATMIS, was formed. ATMIS has a strategic objective to support the Somali security forces to jointly hold priority population centers and provide protection for the local communities. To Today, as we mark 60 years of Kenya's freedom and with the curtain slowly closing down on the peace enforcement mission in the former troubled state, Kenya remains hopeful that eventually Somalia will pick up her pieces and stabilize for its own growth and for the peace and tranquility of the region.